Hey guys, tonight we're taking a very relaxed stroll quite literally into the battlefield of 18th century Siam. Imagine this, a humid morning sun rising slowly over the Mekong River Valley, cicadas buzzing somewhere in the thicket, and the distant clink of ceremonial swords being polished politely. No shouting, no charging, just a tidy, well-dressed army assembling with the calm determination of people gathering for a particularly elaborate group photo. You're in the ranks now, wearing a freshly laundered silk tunic dyed a deep indigo that says, "Yes, I'm here to defend my honor, but let's not make a mess." Around you, other soldiers adjust their ornate sashes, tie colorful scarves with methodical care, and nod respectfully at one another. Some even exchange small bows before hoisting their spears. You look to your left. That guy just offered his opponent a sprig of jasmine before they start fighting. You look to your right. Someone's writing calligraphy on a palm leaf scroll mid-march. You blink. Is this war? Or a very intense garden club? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing this little sleepy history community grow across time zones. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 1771, and you're part of a royal expeditionary force under the Chukri dynasty. You're camped just beyond a banana grove, surrounded by makeshift tents draped with vibrant banners, some depicting white elephants, others stitched with stylized lotus flowers. These aren't just decorative, they signal to the world, and your enemies, that you are, above all, an organized and well-mannered opponent. Breakfast is served rice with salted fish, neatly wrapped in banana leaves and handed out by junior aides who bow each time they pass. You'd think you were at a country estate picnic, if not for the rack of spears leaning politely against a mango tree nearby. A trumpet sounds, not a blaring one, more like a courteous yawn from a brass elephant bell. This isn't the call to arms. It's the start assembling, please signal. You shuffle toward the edge of the clearing, where your commander is already addressing the ranks, speaking not with roars, but with elegant, measured phrases. "We march," he says, not with wrath, but with dignity. You nod along. Of course, dignity first, battle later. As the column forms, there's no bark drill, no stamping of boots. Just the steady swish of silk trousers and the rhythmic clinking of ornamental sword hilts. Even the horses seem unusually calm. One of them has been decorated with golden tassels and appears to be wearing eyeliner. You don't question it. The army's pace is deliberate, slightly faster than a temple procession, slightly slower than a parade. You pass through small villages, where farmers pause in their rice fields to watch. They nod politely. Soldiers bow in return. Sometimes, villagers even offer water, and officers return the gesture with folded hands and murmured blessings. This, you're beginning to realize, is not your average conquest. When you break for rest, a makeshift pavilion is erected for the officers, complete with embroidered cushions and a large parasol. Tea is served, literally, from porcelain cups. It's like the battlefield's trying to seduce you into taking a nap. And then, you meet the other side. Not with a clash, not even with a stare down. Just a mutual halt at a mutually agreed-upon distance. The enemy, it turns out, is equally adorned in crisp silks, equally serene. Their commander approaches slowly, hands folded, flanked by a scribe and a ceremonial gong bearer. A bow is exchanged. The officers talk, not about surrender, not about terms, about when the skirmish might take place. There's a full moon coming, after all, and no one wants to clash under bad astrological conditions. Some logistical constraints are considered: rain, climate, availability of elephants. You, meanwhile, sip cool water from a lacquered gourd and wonder whether anyone remembered to pack the extra parasols. Eventually, it's decided. The battle will begin in 3 days, at sunrise, just beyond the bamboo grove near the river's bend. Both sides agree to this plan. Scribes take notes. Small gifts are exchanged. One officer compliments the other's sash. It's all very civil. Later that evening, as fireflies drift through camp and someone begins strumming a stringed instrument in the distance, you sit beside a fire with other soldiers. No one brags. No one boasts. Instead, They discuss family lineages, poetry, and which silk dye lasts longer in the rainy season. You marvel at the gentleness beneath all this armor. How a warrior's pride is expressed not through aggression, but through honor. Through how well you fight, not how brutally. You fall asleep to the scent of lemongrass and the low murmur of someone reciting temple verses nearby. Tomorrow, there will be sharpening of blades. But tonight, politeness reigns. You wake to the sound of a bird, not a war cry, not a horn, just an extremely opinionated myna perched nearby, judging your sleeping posture. The morning mist curls around the tops of sugar palms as camp slowly stirs to life. No one rushes. The air smells faintly of sweet rice, roasted peanuts, and something herbal, probably tiger balm, judging by the scribe snoring beside you with a linen bandage tied neatly around his head. Today is not battle day. Today is discuss logistics day. You stretch, rinse your hands in a shallow bronze basin, and help the quartermaster set up shaded awnings for today's show. To put this, war admin. There's a low bamboo table, 2 lacquered ink boxes, an entire pouch of sharpened quills, and a jar of tamarind candy in case negotiations stretch into the afternoon. By mid-morning, both sides have assembled again, this time under a tall parasol between camps. There's a string drawn in the dirt to mark equal space for everyone's slippers. You watch as your general removes his footwear, places them precisely on the line, and steps barefoot into the neutral zone. You realize, with mild alarm, that war in 18th century Siam runs a little like a conference with excellent catering. The main discussion today, when exactly tomorrow's battle should start. The other side suggests early morning just before the heat, when the dew still cools the grass. Your officers counter with a mid-morning start, citing the lateness of the sun's rise and the importance of temple offerings before combat. An agreement is made. The 7th hour, after the monks have chanted. You nod. Of course. Nothing happens before breakfast and blessings. Next, battlefield boundaries. Where, precisely, will the combat occur? A rough square is drawn in the dirt. Flags will be placed. No sneaking around the mango orchard. The elephants must stay within the shaded path. Archers, please avoid the northern rice terrace. There are ducklings this season. You almost laugh, but stop yourself. It's not a joke. It's protocol. The final item? Gong protocol. You look up. Gong protocol? You whisper to your neighbor. They nod solemnly. The battle cannot begin until the approach is announced. Both sides will sound a gong when ready. Then we meet. You are handed a very large, very shiny bronze gong. You are now the gong attendant. You wonder, briefly, how this happened. Strike it only once, your commander says. It's a signal, not a serenade. That evening, you are given a new sash red with gold embroidered to mark your temporary elevation to assistant to the assistant gong bearer. You tie it with pride. It's not much, but it's yours. As the sun sets, officers review the plan. One reads from a scroll outlining the schedule. Another double-checks the tea arrangements for after. A scribe notes that a backup parasol has been secured. Just in case. You glance across the field. The opposing camp mirrors yours. Neat rows of soldiers, laughter by a cooking fire, someone boiling lemongrass tea in a squat kettle. Even their elephants seem to be quietly meditating. Back in your tent, you prepare your gear. Your sword is polished. Your tunic has been brushed for dust. Your tag reads your name and town, tied neatly to your wrist, not just for identification, but as a small reminder, you are a guest here, even in conflict. It's an odd feeling, knowing exactly when the battle begins. No ambushes, no night raids, just an appointment, like being invited to a very intense dance performance. Your scribe friend leans over as you settle on your mat. Don't forget to bow first, he whispers, half asleep. It's considered rude to start swinging before you acknowledge your opponent. Right. Bow first, swing second. Classic battlefield etiquette. You fall asleep listening to the soft creaking of silk banners in the breeze, and the distant, muffled sound of someone practicing their war cry very, very politely. Dawn arrives like a cycle, slow, a touch too early. You rise with the others, lured from your bedroll by the scent of pandan leaves steaming on a charcoal grill. Breakfast is light rice, coconut, and dried fish wrapped neatly and eaten in silence. It's battle day, but no one seems anxious. Just focused, respectful, like you're getting ready for a particularly serious group photo. where swords may be involved. You make your way toward the battlefield, not in a frenzied march, but in an orderly procession. The soldiers ahead of you carry long banners, gently swaying in the breeze, and behind them come the musicians. Yes, musicians. Dressed in brilliant orange sashes, they carry drums, flutes, and gongs, spaced at exact intervals, like a politely rhythmic prelude to the main event. You clutch the large bronze gong assigned to you and trail just behind the elephants. They're decked out magnificently today: gold cloths, silver headpieces, tassels that shimmer like river light. Their mahouts, the elephant handlers, hum low chants to keep them calm. One of the elephants, notably older, seems to be chewing rhythmically on sugarcane and absolutely unbothered by the occasion. As you approach the agreed-upon field, you notice something remarkable. There's already a small platform at its edge, shaded by a red silk canopy. It's the etiquette tent, a space reserved for negotiations, refreshments, and, if needed, apologies. You begin to understand. In 18th century Siamese warfare, politeness is not a sideline behavior. It is, in many ways, the main performance. You're given your cue. Strike the gong, your commander says softly. Announce our readiness. You take a breath, grip the padded mallet, and deliver a single, deep boom that echoes over the morning field like a slow heartbeat. From the far side, a pause, then their gong replies, equally measured. It begins, not with a roar, not with cannon fire, with mutual acknowledgement. The two armies line up precisely as agreed. Officers inspect each line, straighten sashes, adjust shoulder guards. Every unit bows, first to their own commander, then collectively to the enemy. The bows aren't deep just enough to say, "We see you. We respect you. Now, let's try to knock each other over without ruining anyone's afternoon." You, still clutching your gong, retreat to the edge of the field as the opening movements begin. No one charges. Instead, small formations advance, slowly measured steps, rhythmic drumming in the background. It's less a clash and more a ritual dance, each move carefully timed. Spears are thrust, but not flailed. Swords are raised in arcs that catch the sunlight like choreography. You're witnessing a war that's part ballet, part chess, part honor-bound debate conducted via metal. A soldier falls knocked off balance, more from form than fury. Two medics walk briskly, retrieve him, bow toward the enemy line, and carry him gently back. Behind you, a scribe is already jotting notes. His scroll reads, "Skirmish began as agreed. Gonged at sunrise. Breezes light from north-northeast. One sandal broken. Battle continues." You wonder what the sandal thing means, but decide not to interrupt him. On the other side of the field, a new formation begins to advance, led by a high-ranking officer in bright green silks. As they move forward, one of their flag-bearers stumbles, and in a heartbeat, two opposing soldiers pause their bout, help the man up, and return to position. It's surreal. You realize something else now. Everyone knows they're being watched. Not just by commanders or scribes, but by ancestors, spirits, possibly even the gods. How you fight says who you are. Grace matters as much as victory. Suddenly, a ripple of sound moves through the crowd. The music slows. A third gong rings, a soft chime from a platform off the main field. The tea tent is opening. You blink. The tea tent? Indeed. A short truce has been declared. Both sides step back. Officers convene under the canopy. Small bowls of herbal tea are distributed, served with candied ginger and an expression of polite restraint. You follow your commander into the tent and take your place near the back. Conversation is low. One general offers a brief apology for a soldier who stepped too far across the northern boundary. The other waves it off with a smile. Everyone drinks. Everyone bows. And after precisely 15 minutes, the tent is cleared, the parasol closed, and the soldiers reassemble. You step back to your post, slightly dazed. Was that normal? You ask the scribe. He nods, blowing gently on his second cup. Usually. Some prefer betel nut. Depends on the season. As the sun climbs higher and the heat begins to rise off the grass in soft waves, the two sides resume, this time with smaller skirmishes, more duels than battles. But always with form. Always with mutual bows before each engagement. Even the war elephants only nudge gently, tapping their opponents with padded tusk guards. By midday, your sash is askew, your gong hand slightly numb, and your understanding of battle forever changed. This isn't just warfare. It's something else. A ritual. A test of balance and control. A display of honor over annihilation. As the final gongs echo across the field, signaling a pause for midday rest and prayer, you sit under a palm tree and sip from your water gourd. You watch the opposing forces retreat not as enemies, but as dancers stepping off stage between acts. You're lounging in the shade of a jackfruit tree when your commanding officer strolls over, fanning himself with a folded map that looks suspiciously like it was drawn on silk. He points to the edge of the clearing where the elephants are lined up in elegant formation, tassels fluttering in the midday breeze, their broad foreheads dabbed with chalk symbols that shimmer faintly in the light. "Time to ride," he says. You blink. Me? Yes. Elephants don't decorate themselves. You rise slowly, dust the leaves from your sash, and approach your steed for the day. A towering female elephant with a scar across her right ear and a saddle blanket embroidered with golden lotuses. Her name, according to the Mahout, is Dok Mai Flower. She regards you with the practiced indifference of someone who has seen far too many nervous apprentices in floppy sandals. You mount carefully, aided by a set of carved wooden steps, and settle into the howdah seat more ornate than it has any right to be, with cushions, a parasol, and a small brass bell for signaling your intentions. There's even a lacquered box containing a fan, a scroll, and a small sachet of jasmine because heaven forbid you forget your fragrance while charging gently into battle. Ahead of you, a procession begins to form. The elephants aren't just beasts of burden here, they are the floating palaces of the battlefield. Each is adorned with symbolic cloth, colored to indicate rank and purpose. Some wear silver armor trimmed with mirrors to dazzle enemy archers. Others have painted toenails. One wears what appears to be a floral wreath, freshly strung. You move slowly, majestically, toward the designated line. The parasol above you wobbles gently in the breeze, shading just your face and shoulders. Behind you, a junior scribe walks briskly, trying to keep your official battle log from flapping in the wind. You've barely adjusted your seating when another officer calls out across the field. His elephant halts. Yours halts. The Mahouts exchange nods. There's a problem. Your parasol is too high. You look up at the silk canopy, then back at your commander, who's already lowering his. The other officer lowers his as well. A few soldiers nearby step in to help. No one scolds. No one panics. But this is serious. Raising one's parasol too high, especially in the presence of someone senior or royal, is a grievous breach of battlefield etiquette. It implies superiority, and even on the front lines, that's not the kind of insult you just toss around like overcooked rice. You lower yours, bow deeply from atop your perch, and receive a subtle nod from the other side. Crisis averted. No elephants trampled. No honor lost. You proceed. The afternoon maneuver is less a charge and more a display. Elephants take center stage in this choreography, gently nudging formations, trumpeting at agreed-upon intervals, and occasionally tossing flower petals not spears into the wind. Yes, you heard that right. At one point, your elephant sways gracefully and dips her head forward. It's a salute. You gently ring the brass bell, and the soldiers behind you kneel in formation, spears upright, but tilted respectfully. Across the field, the other side mirrors the motion. The two commanders bow from their howdahs. This, it seems, is less about breaking lines and more about balance. Symbolic motion, showing restraint as a form of strength. Even when engagement happens and at dose it's gentle. Controlled. Blunted spears clash with shields padded in brocade. Swords meet in careful arcs, never swinging wildly. No one screams. Even the elephants engage with padded tusks and deliberate footwork, as though they're sparring in an ancient ballroom. You lean over to speak with your Mahout. Do we ever actually charge? He shrugs. Sometimes. If someone forgets a birthday. You don't ask. As the maneuver draws to a close, a cloud of sandalwood smoke drifts over the field. Someone has lit ceremonial incense, likely a priest blessing the warriors from the shaded tent near the rear. You spot monks moving quietly among the ranks, offering amulets, murmuring chants. You climb down from the elephant as the sun begins its slow descent behind the hills. Your legs wobble. Your sash has come untucked. Your hair smells faintly of sugarcane and elephant sweat. But no one minds. You bow to the elephant. She flaps her ears once in what you choose to interpret as approval. As you return to camp, there's a flurry of discussion about tomorrow's engagement. It may involve actual swordplay. There's talk of a duel consensual, of course between two generals over a disputed water well. You're handed a revised schedule, a checklist for ceremonial items, and a reminder. Do not forget your parasol etiquette. Last time someone raised theirs too early, we had to pause the battle for tea. You nod. Lesson learned. Tonight, you fall asleep dreaming of elephants in golden armor, bowing to one another under the fading light, their massive forms moving through clouds of incense and jasmine. You dream of the battlefield not as a place of fear, but as a stage. And you, gently clinking your gong, trying not to upstage the elephants. You wake to the clinking of teacups. Not the sound you expected before a day of conflict, but here in 18th century Siam, it's not only expected, it's encouraged. You roll off your mat, stretch beneath a canopy woven with palm fronds, and follow the scent of roasted sesame and lemongrass to the etiquette tent, where the real action arguably takes place. It's truce morning. Today's sunrise has been marked for a temporary ceasefire, and both sides are honoring it. Not just with silence, but with ceremony. A long table has been set under the joint parasol between camps. There are cushions, cooling cloths, and porcelain bowls arranged with geometric precision. You spot boiled peanuts, palm sugar sweets, and a gleaming silver kettle emitting gentle wisps of steam. You take a seat along the outer circle. Only officers and scribes sit at the table, but everyone gets tea. A junior aide hands you a cup with both hands, bowing slightly. You return the bow, mindful not to slosh your drink. Across the clearing, soldiers from the other side are arriving in equal formation. Not an army, just dignified guests at a countryside brunch. They wear their battlefield silks, but their weapons are sheathed, tucked neatly behind them like umbrellas on a rainy porch. Someone passes you a dish of pickled ginger. You nod in thanks and notice the small bundle of betel leaves beside the tea urn. This is more than hospitality, it's ritual. One officer rises, not for a toast, for a formal acknowledgement. In honor of the shared reign, he says, we lay down arms, not in defeat, but in decency. You're still chewing ginger, so you don't speak, but you murmur agreement through your nostrils. The tea ceremony unfolds slowly. Tiny gestures carry weight. A refill offered before being requested. A folded napkin placed atop a dagger to symbolize peace. Conversations remain light weather, harvest yields, favorite incense blends. At one point, you hear laughter. Actual, cheerful, slightly snorting laughter. A general is recounting a story of how his war elephant once refused to step into muddy water because the stars weren't aligned. He swears by it. The astrologer confirmed it later. You sip your tea and note that the leaves have formed a little spiral at the bottom of your cup. According to your tent mate, that means good fortune unless interrupted by a wandering goose. There is, indeed, a goose waddling through the encampment at this very moment. You decide not to look directly at it. After tea, gifts are exchanged. Small ones. A jar of honey. A lacquer box of tamarind paste. One officer gifts another a silk handkerchief embroidered with a poem. The recipient bows, not just out of politeness, but from a genuine appreciation of verse and stitching quality. These aren't peace negotiations. The battle is still scheduled for tomorrow. But this interlude, this moment of shared tea and candied mango, is as crucial as the clash. It sets the tone, confirms the civility, reminds both sides that beneath the brocade and blunted spears, they are people of the same land, drinking the same rain, eating the same pickled fruit. A scribe beside you is recording everything. Not the way a modern war correspondent would. No drama, no personal flair. Just clean, orderly lines. Tea served at sunrise. One goose present. No hostilities. Laughter noted at third bell. You glance over his shoulder. He's drawn a little illustration of the tea table. The goose, too. After the final cup, incense is lit. The smoke trails upward like a flag of pause. A priest from each camp says a blessing, not for victory, but for balance. No names are invoked. No gods asked for destruction. Only the restoration of harmony, regardless of outcome. Then, as gracefully as they arrived, the opposing party returns to their camp. There are no backward glances, no glares, just nods, half smiles, and one soldier who tips his parasol to you as he passes. You tip yours back. Later, when you return to your tent, you find a small satchel placed neatly near your mat. Inside is a string-tied bundle of dried tea leaves and a folded slip of paper. The note reads, "From one gong bearer to another. May your strikes be timely, and your sash never slip." There's no signature. You lie back with the satchel resting on your chest and stare up at the woven ceiling of your tent. You think about how strange and wonderful it is that a war could pause for pastries, that officers could swap handkerchiefs before exchanging blows, that someone, somewhere on the other side, thought of you. And tomorrow, you'll meet them again in the field, not as friends, perhaps not even as foes, but as participants in something far more complicated than conquest. Something politely choreographed. Your boots sink slightly into the soft morning ground as you step onto the practice field. Today's session is focused on what the officers call preparatory confrontation etiquette, or, more plainly, the polite art of preparing to potentially hurt someone. The air is still heavy with the scent of tea leaves from yesterday's truce. But now, that calm is paired with the subtle clinks and rustles of soldiers checking their weapons. Curved crisp daggers, spears with intricate pommels, and swords polished to a mirror finish. You trail behind your unit, gently adjusting your sash for the 12th time. You notice something odd, though? There's no shouting, no intense sparring, no motivational speeches about glory or death. Instead, the air is filled with greetings-friendly ones. Soldiers greet their sparring partners with a prayer-like gesture of palms together, accompanied by a slight bow. They compliment each other's footwork. One even asks his opponent if the new scabbard he's wearing was stitched locally. It was. A cousin's uncle's apprentice did the embroidery. You shadow a pair of fighters through a slow-motion bout. Their blades swish with grace, barely clashing. Each move seems rehearsed, but it's not theater, it's mutual understanding. They're testing reflexes, yes, but also measuring restraint. The goal isn't to overpower. It's to communicate intention through motion. Your instructor, a wiry man with hands like bundled twigs and the posture of a papaya tree in the wind, calls you forward. You carry the blade like a farmer's hoe, he says. Respect it, and it will respect you. He hands you a creosote wavy-bladed dagger with a silver hilt shaped like a naga serpent. It hums in your hand, more symbolic than deadly. The blade has a gentle curve, almost whimsical, but you're told it's balanced perfectly for both flourish and defense. You practice stance, then movement, then the greeting. Before drawing your blade, you bow. After drawing it, you offer the blade edge toward the sky, not the ground. Always upward, never downward. Drawing downward is considered disrespectful. Scholars still argue whether this symbolism stems from early Brahmin influence or something uniquely Siamese, but either way, you file that away. You're told never to brandish a weapon in anger. That dishonors both the blade and your lineage. And you begin to understand Siamese warfare wasn't about humiliation or frenzy. It was a series of carefully articulated expressions, like a poem with steel punctuation. Later that day, while oiling your blade, you overhear two officers talking. "I apologized after the strike," one says. "Of course," replies the other. "He'd just realigned his helmet. It would have been uncivil to rush him." You blink. Apologizing mid-combat? That's new. You file it under things I might never get used to, alongside battlefield flower garlands and scheduled duels with RSVP. Speaking of RSVPs, there's a rumor drifting through camp about tomorrow's confrontation. A regional noble will be attending, observing from a shaded platform with a fan in one hand and a scribe beside him, ready to document the event in verse. This means protocol will be stricter. Sashes must be tied just so. No raised voices. No sudden movements without preamble. The noble prefers clarity over chaos. You and a few others are assigned to gesture rehearsal, which is exactly what it sounds like. A training officer demonstrates the proper way to bow when disengaging. You repeat it, then the flourish before resuming a bout. You repeat that, then the stance to take if you happen to lose your grip on your blade and need to retrieve it without appearing panicked. Dignity at all times, he reminds you, even when falling. You do fall, once, during practice. You trip over a loose stone, tumble sideways, and land on your back. Everyone sees, but no one laughs. Instead, the nearest soldier steps forward, helps you up, and bows slightly. "You fell with grace," he says. "Well done." It's the strangest compliment you've ever received, and you genuinely treasure it. Back at your tent, you polish your kris, fold your sash neatly, and add a fresh drop of jasmine oil behind your ears. Not for vanity, but for presence. You think about your opponent tomorrow, whoever they are, and wonder what flower they'll carry. What family poem is tucked in the lining of their tunic. Whether their blade will tremble or hum like yours does now. You fall asleep with your kris beside you, not beneath your pillow, but wrapped in cloth, placed gently at your side like a guest. Because that's how it's done here. With form, with respect, with the quiet knowledge that sometimes civility is sharper than any sword. By the time the sun has lifted itself above the tree line, there's already a hum moving through camp, not of tension, but of delicate anticipation. A thin stream of smoke rises from the ceremonial incense urn, and soldiers move with a kind of practiced slowness, checking their sashes and scabbards as if heading to a formal banquet rather than open conflict. You're halfway through re-knotting your sash when a messenger arrives at your tent. He bows, offers a scroll with both hands, and disappears again without a word. The scroll is tied with green silk, a signal that this is not just any note. It's an apology. You unroll it carefully. The handwriting is elegant, brushstroked with care. It reads, "To the opposing regiment of the eastern flank, I humbly acknowledge the minor breach of last dusk's perimeter, caused inadvertently by a wayward horse under my command. Please extend my regrets to your officers. We will refresh the field boundary with white chalk and ensure no further encroachments. With respect, Colonel Chanup of the Rain Banner Battalion." You stare at it for a moment, then pass it to your superior, who reads it twice, folds it neatly, and tucks it into his sleeve. "Good man, that Chanup," he says. "He once apologized for stepping too loudly during a funeral march." Apparently, battlefield apology notes aren't rare. In fact, there's a whole etiquette surrounding them. They must be handwritten, concise, and delivered in person or by trusted runner. Scribes sometimes copy them for archival purposes because someday, someone might want to know how many regrets were issued during a given campaign. You help draft a response. It's short, polite, and includes a small illustration of a horse with what looks like a slightly embarrassed face. You suggest it, and surprisingly, the captain approves. As the letter is sealed with a wax stamp shaped like a lotus, you find yourself wondering how many wars in history have included such moments, quiet exchanges of human decency in the middle of strategic maneuvering. Later that morning, your unit moves to a forward camp just behind a grove of young teak trees. As you settle in, another note arrives, this time marked with a yellow ribbon, the color of goodwill. It's from a commander you haven't met. He writes, "There is to be a clash of spears near the central ridge tomorrow. We hope to avoid the sacred fig grove. Kindly confirm your formations will not extend beyond the red boulders." Your commander nods. "We'll need to adjust our archers. But yes, Fig Grove is untouchable." Why? Because there's a shrine there. A very old one. No one wants to damage it, even accidentally. It's said to be a place where fallen warriors are honored, regardless of which side they served. Some claim to have seen fox spirits wandering there at dusk. Others say it's just a peaceful place that smells nice and keeps the elephants calm. Either way, it will be spared. You help mark the new boundary with red twine tied around bamboo stakes. It's quiet work, but ceremonial. Another unit approaches from the opposite side, doing the same. When you meet near the midpoint, a few words are exchanged, low and respectful. One of their officers even offers your party a jar of coconut candies for hydration. Your captain accepts, with a bow so deep it nearly knocks his hat off. By now, your boots are dusty, your hands are faintly sticky from coconut syrup, and your pouch contains not a single arrow but 3 letters of apology, 2 boundary clarifications, and 1 thank you note for a well-placed shade tree. And you've still seen no battle. That afternoon, you witness something remarkable. 2 generals meeting on foot between camps to discuss a recent skirmish that ended in a draw. Instead of trying to claim advantage, they sit cross-legged on a mat and take tea together. Their conversation? Not tactics, not demands. They discuss the autumn rains, the condition of the road to Ayutthaya, and one general's recent visit to his aging mother, who insist he wear a thicker scarf in damp weather. You learn later that this meeting will be documented in the official campaign records as a mutual recognition of conditions and continued courtesy. Scholars still argue whether these team meetings held any tactical value, or whether they were purely ceremonial. Some believe they kept tempers in check. Others argue they gave commanders a way to save face without losing ground. Either way, the result is the same: battles delayed, casualties minimized, and protocol preserved. As evening falls, your unit begins preparation for a new maneuver scheduled at dawn. It's not a major engagement, more of a tactical gesture. The kind that lets both sides say, yes, we're still active, without actually hurting anyone. You help sharpen blades. But as always, every blade is checked not just for edge, but for presentation. A chipped hilt? Unacceptable. A soiled scabbard? Offensive. One soldier, shamed by a scuff on his spear, offers to sit out the engagement entirely. He's forgiven but made to clean the ceremonial umbrellas overnight. You end your day by writing a short note to the opposing gong bearer. Nothing dramatic. Just, excellent timing this morning. Lovely resonance. May tomorrow's strike be equally balanced. You don't know if they'll reply, but you tie the note to a message bird, release it gently into the dusky sky, and watch it disappear into the gold-tinted clouds. You wake to the distant sound of bells, not the urgent clamor of alarm, but a soft, rhythmic chiming that marks a birthday. Yes, a birthday. Word has spread quickly through both camps. Prince Sangwon, son of the High Regent and observer of this particular campaign, is turning 15 today. And because this is 18th century Siam, and because warfare is nothing if not flexible, everything is now on pause. You sit up groggily, adjust your sash, and poke your head out of the tent. Soldiers are sweeping pathways. A trio of scribes are arranging lotus blossoms in large, shallow bowls. And across the field, a string of red and gold lanterns has appeared overnight, strung between two ornate parasols at the edge of the etiquette tent. It seems today's battle will be rescheduled. Your commander confirms it. We will reconvene hostilities tomorrow, he says between sips of morning tea. Today, we celebrate life. With restraint. You're not entirely sure what that means, but soon you're handed a folded paper hat and a packet of candied sesame seeds wrapped in a palm leaf. A musician nearby begins plucking a soothing tune on a kim, and for a brief, surreal moment, it feels like you've wandered into a village festival rather than the middle of a military campaign. Preparations are underway for a birthday procession, not a parade too ostentatious. This will be a slow, symbolic walk through the camp, led by elephants wearing woven sashes and tail tassels dipped in dye the color of morning glories. You're assigned to carry one of the floral banners: happiness, prosperity, humble discipline. It reads, and your only instruction is to smile gently, but not so much that you distract the prince. You line up alongside soldiers from both camps. That's right, both sides. No armor, no weapons, just polished boots, matching shoulder cloths, and rows of sleepy but well-behaved soldiers clutching birthday garlands like distant cousins at a royal garden party. The prince himself is wheeled out in a decorative palanquin, wearing an ivory robe embroidered with subtle silver birds. He looks composed, if a little overwhelmed. He waves politely at the rows of soldiers bowing from the waist, and someone from the opposing side presents him with a small lacquered box. Inside, a single polished river pebble. Symbolic. He accepts it with a nod that is neither too slow nor too fast. The procession moves slowly, each step choreographed, each gesture observed. One of the elephants lets out a sneeze, showering a nearby monk with floral confetti and a bit of trunk mist. No one reacts. To acknowledge such things openly would be to disrupt the serenity. Later, a modest feast is served under a silk canopy: grilled fish, sweet sticky rice, slices of jackfruit arranged into lotus shapes. You sit beside a soldier you once sparred with. You nod to each other. No words. Just a moment of mutual understanding that today is not about swords. There's a performance. Young dancers from a local village are brought in. Their movements are slow, fluid, and carefully measured. A poem is recited, written in honor of the prince's birth. It includes lines about moonlight and rice harvests and the importance of inner stillness. You clap softly, the approved volume being somewhere between thoughtful appreciation and gentle rainfall. Then comes the part no one expected. An envoy from the opposing side rises and requests permission to offer a gift of performance. It's granted. He steps forward, clears his throat, and begins to sing. Badly. He's clearly not a trained performer, and halfway through a verse about brave lotus flowers and noble foreheads, his pitch falters. A few muffled chuckles escape from the crowd. He bows, deeply, and adds, for the prince and, regrettably, also for everyone's ears. The laughter is louder this time. Still polite. Still within bounds. Even the prince cracks a smile. As the afternoon stretches on, the soldiers begin to return to their tents in small groups. Not a single weapon has been unsheathed. Not one boot print has disturbed the sacred fig grove. But something has changed. You feel it, quietly and easing. The kind of invisible shift that comes not from advantage or victory, but from a moment of mutual pause. A shared breath. A reminder that behind the banners and formations, behind the bowstrings and blade edges, there are people here. Humans. The birthday celebration ends with a simple act. The prince offers each camp a scroll, one each. Inside is the same poem, written in his own hand. It ends with the line, "To hold a sword is to steady a tree in the wind." Both require calm and roots. You return to your mat as dusk approaches. The sky turns the color of faded turmeric. Somewhere, a soldier hums a lullaby. You sip warm water, unwrap a final candied sesame, and tuck the prince's scroll into your satchel. And you wonder, as you drift towards sleep, if perhaps the most powerful maneuver on today's battlefield was just not fighting. The mood in camp the next morning is reverent. Not somber, not tense, just quiet, like everyone is tiptoeing through the echo of yesterday's birthday. Even the elephants seem to walk with more decorum than usual, their bells muffled under layers of indigo cloth. You slip on your freshly laundered tunic, now slightly stiff from the rice starch used to keep its pleats ceremonial, and tie your fa cow mate, sacred multi-purpose cloth with extra care. Today, it matters more than ever. The fa cow ma isn't just a sash. It's a scarf, a belt, a towel, a sling, a signal, a keepsake. In times of peace, it might be tied around the waist or worn over the shoulder. In wartime, it could carry messages or bind wounds. Today, it is tied around your head, knotted just above the brow, because that's the customary signal for readiness in formal engagement. But there's another, more delicate rule. Never step on someone's fa cow ma. You're told this by your sergeant with a seriousness normally reserved for military secrets. If it's tied, if it's dropped, even if it's just drying, step around it, he says. To tread on it is to tread on someone's dignity. And dignity is currency here. A step out of line can cost you far more than a bruised ego. Later that morning, you join a group of soldiers preparing for a ceremonial sparring display. It's not a skirmish, not quite a duel, more like a dance of respect. You stand in line, watching as the first two fighters enter the ring, marked by 4 short bamboo poles and a single white flag fluttering at each corner. They bow. They circle. Then they begin. The clash is slow and stylized. Each move is mirrored. Sword swings aren't aimed to harm, but to express. A blocked strike is answered by a retreating step, then a forward motion, then another bow. It's hypnotic, like watching calligraphy performed by 2 very focused statues. You're so drawn in, you almost miss it. One fighter stumbles only slightly and their fa cow ma slips, trailing just a touch onto the edge of the ring. You and everyone else inhale. The opponent halts immediately, doesn't press forward. Instead, they crouch, gently pick up the cloth, and present it back with both hands, bowing low enough to touch forehead to knee. The crowd exhales. The fight resumes. That momentous, simple, silent correction feels heavier than any sword swing you've seen. Later, during your shift as assistant to the water bearer, yes, it's your day again. You carry jugs across the field and overhear a commander recounting the incident of the trampled scarf from 3 years ago. No injuries, he says. But there were 3 apology scrolls, an offering at the river shrine, and a poem composed in regret. The scarf was burned with incense. Only proper. Historians still argue whether the strict reverence for the fa cow ma arose from its symbolism in courtly traditions or its links to older animist customs. Either way, everyone agrees. It's sacred, and stepping on Idavan unintentionally is a breach more serious than theft. You start noticing the cloths everywhere. tied around spears, draped over elephant ears, worn by officers in braided loops that indicate rank, like a code only the polite can decipher. Each one is unique. Yours? A faded blue check pattern with two small embroidered lotuses near one end. A gift from your aunt before you left home. You find yourself adjusting it more carefully now, making sure the ends don't drag in the dust. By mid-afternoon, your unit assembles for another demonstration, this time in the presence of a visiting noblewoman from a neighboring province. She arrives under a silk canopy, her face shaded by a carved sandalwood fan. Rumor has it she once stopped an entire conflict over a misdelivered handkerchief. The stakes are high. Before the sparring begins, each soldier must perform the Y-Crew ritualized bow of respect to one's teachers and commanders. It includes 3 bows, 1 full prostration, and the silent recitation of your lineage, allowed only in your heart. When it's your turn, you step into the ring, carefully avoiding the boundary ropes, bow 3 times, and feel your fa cow ma shift gently against your cheek. You recite your grandfather's name, then your mother's, then your own. It feels good, grounding, like each knot of the cloth ties you to something larger than the battlefield. That evening, you untie it slowly and lay it beside your mat with care. One of your tent mates asks if they can borrow it tomorrow to signal allegiance during a mock parade for visiting scribes. You hesitate, but only for a moment. Only if you fold it properly, you say, and don't let it touch the goat pen. He nods solemnly. Never the goat pen. You fall asleep with the image of warriors bowing across a field, cloths fluttering like flags of quiet pride, and the sense that war, here, is less about territory and more about tapestry. The dawn smells like wet ink and papaya leaves. You're woken not by bells or gongs, but by the soft shuffle of sandals, dozens of them moving in practiced rhythm just beyond your tent. You peek through the woven flap and see them, scribes, young and old, robes tucked high, scrolls tucked higher, trailing behind the officers with the determined focus of people who absolutely must document what color the sky was at 6:03 a.m. Today is documentation day. Once every few weeks, depending on the tempo of the campaign, the scribes take over. Not the army, not the elephants, not even the weather, really. All operations pause just slightly so that the history of the campaign can be recorded, reviewed, and elegantly annotated. You're summoned to assist. You're given a reed brush, a block of ink, and a long strip of mulberry bark paper. Not the good stuff, mind you, Yuri, not that senior. But it's smooth, uncracked, and smells faintly of lemongrass. You're assigned to record skirmishes from the western flank over the past 10 days, including, as the head scribe insists, acts of courtesy, symbolic gestures, and significant weather. The first entry you're handed reads, "On the 3rd day of the waxing moon, Colonel Wuriset did decline engagement out of deference to the priest's funeral procession. Battle was postponed with mutual blessing. Thunder to the northeast." You're told to transcribe it slowly and beautifully, taking extra care with the curls of the consonants. History, your instructor mutters, should never look rushed. Around you, other scribes are hard at work. One is sketching elephants in profile. Another is illustrating the exact bowing angle performed by a visiting dignitary. A third is carefully painting a stylized version of yesterday's gift exchange between opposing officers. The box of dried mango strips is rendered with such reverence it might as well be royal regalia. You're surprised to learn that battlefield scribes are as much artists as archivists. Every document they produce is both record and ritual, intended not just to inform, but to be read aloud, admired, even performed later at court. In one corner of the tent, a junior scribe is rehearsing a dramatic retelling of a previous campaign's truce, complete with musical accompaniment and fluttering ribbons. Apparently, the king enjoys reenacted history, especially when the flag choreography is accurate. Back at your station, you're tasked with copying an exchange of letters between commanders. It's less like transcribing military correspondence and more like curating a correspondence anthology. The phrasing is poetic. "I regret the crossing of our elephants' paths at the 3rd hill, though their dance was majestic. Shall we resume our original alignment beneath the banyan?" The response, "Let the banyan be our compass. And if the elephants meet again, may they bow first." You shake your head, smiling. Somewhere in another world, People are probably hurling spears at each other without so much as a nod. Your next assignment is more technical. Inventory logs from a recent joint ceasefire meal. You count 34 bowls of jasmine rice, 12 bundles of boiled taro, 8 exchanged garlands, marigold, 2 incomplete, 1 gift flute, not played due to humidity. You include all of it because everything matters, especially the humidity. You look up and notice one scribe brushing gold ink over the borders of a scrawled decorative piece for the temple archives. It's meant to be sung aloud during New Year rituals. Chronicle of the Courteous Campaign. You read a few lines. We fought with measured pace and palm-shaded brows, and paused at tea for peace, not pause for fear. There's a debate in one corner of the room about whether the phrase bamboo drifted between our feet refers to actual bamboo or a metaphor for unresolved tension. You're told this will likely continue into the evening. Historians still argue about it today. Just before midday, a high-ranking officer enters the tent. He consults the head scribe and then speaks to you directly. We'll be presenting these documents to the Crown Prince, he says. Your transcription of the apology note for the misplaced parasol liked that one. Wants it copied in lacquer. You blink. The misplaced parasol? He nods. He laughed. Said it showed elegant regret. You've never felt prouder of an ink blot. In the afternoon, the scribes take their records to the temple altar at the edge of the camp. There, they're offered up not burned, not buried, but placed gently under carved stone guardians where monks can bless them. These aren't just military logs. They're tributes to balance, to restraint, to the art of knowing when not to strike. You join the line, scroll in hand, and lay your work at the base of the shrine. The priest nods once, brushes incense smoke over your shoulder, and whispers something in a dialect you don't fully understand. But you know what it means. It means your record matters. It means someone, somewhere, will read it perhaps years from now and know that even in the middle of conflict, there was courtesy. There was care. There was someone with a brush and a cloth and a quiet wish for peace, writing things down as they happened just in case they were beautiful. There's a scent in the air today that stops you mid-step. Jasmine. Fresh. Layered over the usual smells of clay, oil, and wood smoke. You follow it toward the edge of camp, passing rows of polished spears and folded tents until you arrive at a quiet clearing where a strange and beautiful ritual is already underway. It's not a training session. It's not a performance. It's a funeral, but not one of sorrow or spectacle. This is a garlanding ceremony. In 18th century Siamese warfare, when someone falls on either side, there's a custom older than the kingdom itself. Soldiers place floral offerings upon the bodies of the fallen. Not haphazardly, not for effect, but with reverence. Jasmine garlands for courage. Lotus petals for purity. Frangipani for peace. You're asked to help. There is no marching band. No cannon salute. Only the quiet rustle of robes and the clink of small silver bowls as they're filled with flower water. Soldiers move in a line, each holding a single bloom, stepping barefoot so as not to disturb the spirits. The fallen lie in the shaded grove, carefully arranged, not hidden, not elevated, just there. Present. Some wore green sashes, others red, but it doesn't matter now. They are part of the same ritual. You step forward, holding a ring of jasmine blooms. You're not sure if there's a correct place to set it in the chest, the palm. You look to a senior monk, who nods toward the heart. You kneel, place the garland, and whisper the simple phrase taught to all soldiers here. Go in balance. Go in scent. Behind you, another soldier lays down a frangipani bloom and adds a small folded note. You catch the corner as it flutters. It's a verse, written in tight, careful hand. Something about wind and rice. You look away. No one speaks loudly. No one weeps publicly. But every motion speaks volumes. Even the opposing camp sends a delegation. Not under truce, under tradition. A line of soldiers in full dress, bearing garlands and incense, bows at the edge of the grove before stepping inside. One of them lays a garland upon a soldier he probably fought yesterday. Another lights a cone of incense and presses their forehead to the earth. This isn't show. This is obligation. This is soul smoothing. One older fighter, limping slightly, tells you that in his youth, he once saw a general remove his helmet and place it at the feet of a fallen enemy. He said, the man recounts, that no blade should be carried higher than a man who fell with dignity. You don't forget that. After the garlanding, the monks step forward. Bells chime softly. The scent of sandalwood thickens in the air. The bodies will be taken not to cremation yet, but to the shrine hill beyond the camp, where prayers will be offered for 7 days before final rites. You help carry a bamboo litter, light and gentle. The rhythm of your steps with the others feels right, like a moving meditation. As you walk, you hear faint singing. A small group of young novices is chanting a funeral ode, not for grief, but for transition. The verses are slow and full of nature metaphors. Birds, rivers, clouds. Nothing about vengeance. You begin to realize this is how peace grows inside a war knot in the treaties, not in the orders but in these acts. Small, deliberate choices to honor even an enemy. One scholar once described this tradition as flowering the battlefield. Historians still argue about whether it began as a spiritual necessity or a political performance. Some say it started as a way to cleanse the land and please the spirits. Others believe it was designed to keep soldiers mindful to make them understand that each action has a cost. Maybe both. That afternoon, your hands smell faintly of jasmine and ash. You wash them in a basin of lemongrass water and sit beneath a tamarind tree, watching a scribe sketch the garlanded grove with quiet precision. You ask if the drawing will go to the archives. He nods. We document everything, even the flowers, especially the flowers. He points to a small corner where he scribbled a note. Number of garlands, 42. Shared by both sides, 15. Wind from the south. You ask why the wind matters. It always does, he replies. Before nightfall, you return to your tent. Your fa cow ma is drying on a cord. Your boots are still damp with earth. And your memory is full not of battle, but of blossoms, incense, and that hauntingly beautiful chant that echoed through the trees. You sleep with your window flap open, in case the wind wants to say something else. The morning sun casts long shadows through the palm fronds as you make your way toward the outer ring of the encampment. Today, you're not heading to a drill or a feast or even a flower-lined funeral. You're heading to a duel. A scheduled, mutually agreed upon, ritually sanctioned duel. If you're picturing a roaring crowd, crude taunts, and reckless clashing of sorcery in the wrong century, and definitely the wrong kingdom. The duel here in 18th century Siam begins with an invitation. Written on stiff mulberry paper, sealed with gold wax, and hand-delivered by a go-between, it outlines the reason for the duel, a disputed boundary during last week's tactical exercise, the proposed time and date, shortly after breakfast, allowing time for digestion, and the weapons, ceremonial sabers with blunted tips. You arrive just as both duelists are finishing their warm-up bows. They're not alone. Each is flanked by a gesture interpreter, someone tasked with confirming that each movement made is intentional and not offensive. The duel will be slow, symbolic, and above all, respectful. There's even a tent for refreshments. The dueling space has been raked smooth, the soil dampened to reduce dust. For boundary stones have been set, marked with lotus petals to avoid sharp corners. The officiating monk sits beneath a parasol, reading quietly from a scroll of appropriate phrases for the occasion. You find a spot at the edge of the ring, standing beside a soldier who offers you dried banana chips without breaking eye contact with the field. This one should be interesting, he whispers. Both of them studied under the same sword master. You raise an eyebrow. Wouldn't that make it predictable? He shrugs. Only if they're boring. A light drumbeat begins, not to stir aggression, but to establish rhythm. Duels like these are choreographed like court dances. The first strike is made not to harm, but to declare intent. The first few exchanges are careful, almost delicate. The sabers meet with a soft clack, each blow followed by a measured retreat, a tilt of the head, a respectful pause. After each strike, both combatants bow not deeply, but just enough to say, "I acknowledge you." You notice one of them adjusting the hem of his sleeve after a particularly graceful parry. His opponent nods, seemingly impressed. The crowd murmurs appreciatively. There are no jeers, no cheers, just soft exhalations, the occasional rustle of someone shifting on a mat, and the ever-present scribe scratching away in the background. He's recording every movement with the care of a poet transcribing starlight. Halfway through, the younger duelist makes a sudden lunge, a bold move, slightly outside the tempo. The elder responds not with panic, but a swift sidestep and a flick of his saber that sends his opponent's blade clattering softly to the dirt. No gasps, just a respectful silence. Then something remarkable happens. The elder pauses, looks at the officiant, then at the crowd. He sheathes his saber, steps back into the ring, kneels, and picks up the fallen blade. With both hands, he offers it back to his opponent, who accepts it with a bow so low it almost brushes the earth. The duel is over. No blood, no bruises, only bows. Later, as everyone shares tea and murmured post-duel commentary, you overhear a discussion about whether the lunge was intentional, a flourish to test balance, or a genuine overreach. Historians still argue about the purpose of such gestures. Some say they're tests of inner discipline. Others see them as ritualized ways to relieve tension within the chain of command. You finish your banana chips and nod, pretending you understand. Deep down, you're just grateful for the shade and the sheer lack of screaming. Before leaving, you pass the officiating monk, who's now sipping sugarcane juice and smiling to himself. Dueling, he says quietly, isn't about winning. It's about remembering how to pause. You file that away. On your way back to camp, you pass a pair of soldiers engaged in what appears to be a slow-motion reenactment of the duel with bamboo sticks. They're practicing the forms not for battle, but for form's sake. One missteps slightly, brushes his opponent's sash with his sleeve, and immediately stops to bow and reset. You watch them for a few minutes. Then, without really thinking, you pick up a stick and ask if they need a third. Turns out, they do. That evening, your shoulders ache, your knees are a bit dusty, but your posture is straighter and your movements just slightly more deliberate. You sleep easily, the rhythms of the duel still echoing in your arms, and the calm certainty of each pause resting gently at the back of your mind. The heat comes early today, rising from the ground in soft ripples that shimmer across the fabric-draped tents and the dust-chalked training grounds. But despite the warmth, the entire camp seems unusually focused. There's a kind of poised stillness in the air, like a stage just before the curtain rises. You've been chosen along with several others to take part in what the officers are calling a field performance. Not a battle, not a duel, but a full-scale, fully choreographed demonstration of the Siamese art of war. You blink twice and recheck the order scroll. Yes, performance. You arrive at the central training ground to find it transformed. Bright banners flutter from bamboo poles. A square platform has been raised at one end, not for command, but for the noble observers who will arrive later. Scribes sit beneath parasols, ink trays balanced in their laps, ready to record every measured movement. One of them waves you over and offers a small pot of rouge. For your cheeks, he says simply. You'll be seen. You politely decline, but make a mental note to straighten your sash. The battlefield, as it's temporarily renamed, is carefully arranged. Every formation has its marked positions chalked onto the ground with decorative flourishes. Each battalion is assigned a theme: elephants, rivers, fire, rain. The formations will mimic these forces, not as metaphors, but as acts. You, naturally, are in team ring. You'll be sweeping from the left, falling in curved formations, retreating like a storm dissolving. You're told to keep your movements fluid, your blade arcs graceful, your expression composed but not bored. Before the event begins, a priest blesses the field. He carries a silver bowl of water, dips a frond of palm into it, and flicks droplets over the earth and each soldier's feet. No step, he says softly, without purpose. Then the drums begin low, resonant, like a heartbeat beneath your ribs. The first group moves forward. Fire. Their footwork is quick, their formations sharp. Sabers whirl like flames, each turn punctuated by a coordinated shout, more rhythmic than aggressive. Next, elephant. Soldiers march with deliberate slowness, arms extended, movements heavy. They move in unison, each step a thunderous echo of the sacred beast they represent. Even their blinking feels timed. And then it's your turn. Rain steps onto the field with bare feet, sashes untied to trail like flowing water. You raise your blade polish to a mirrored sheen and begin your dance. Every movement has been rehearsed. Left sweep, drop step, blade across the sky, pause, retreat, ripple. You're aware of everything: the sweat on your temple, the drumbeat in your chest, the glint of sunlight off tin matching hilts, the silence of the crowd, holding their breath for your next motion. And you don't break form. Not once. The observers applaud not loudly, but with synchronized claps, 5 to be exact. That's the polite limit. Anything more is ostentatious. You step back into formation, chest rising and falling, and feel your body settling into stillness. Around you, river begins their sequence, then storm, the phenyline orchestrated mock clash between two units that flows with theatrical precision, ending not in a shout, but in a shared bow. It's a performance, yes, but also a message. To fight is to perform with discipline. To wield power is to show control. To lose gracefully is as noble as to win with elegance. Back in camp, everyone's quietly exhilarated. You hear soldiers muttering critiques of their footwork, of the timing, of a blade raised half a beat too early. No one speaks of victory, only of symmetry. You learn later that performances like these have been recorded in temple murals and court scrolls for centuries. They're not modern innovations. They're part of the fabric. Some historians argue they evolved from court dances, others from animist rituals of mimicking nature to win divine favor. Either way, they blur the line between war and art. That night, as you wash the dust from your ankles and rub Tiger Balm into your shoulders, your tent mate asks if you felt nervous. A little, you admit. Mostly about the turns. He nods, unwrapping a bundle of candied ginger. I missed one. Left foot slid too far. I looked more like a puddle than a current. You laugh. He offers you a piece. You'll get it next time, you say? Maybe they'll assign us missed. Less footwork. You lie down with the last of the drumbeat still echoing in your ears. Not pounding, not chaotic, just deliberate, like rainfall that chooses exactly where to fall. The scent of fried garlic lingers in the air as the sun creeps over the ridge, gilding the tops of the palm trees in that sleepy, syrupy light that makes everything feel like it might just stay still forever. But today, there's a hush, not the hush of reverence, not the hush of anticipation. It's the hush of realization. Today's march has been postponed again. The official reason, flooded roads. The unofficial reason, whispered behind fans and rice sacks. No one's particularly eager to win. You wander toward the command tent, where a handful of officers are pretending to check maps, but mostly sipping tea and debating the proper poetic meter for describing mud. One gestures vaguely toward the east with a rice cracker. They built a fortification, he says. Did they? Another replies, unconcerned. I thought we agreed on a water ditch. They built both. Oh, well, consider it. It's not that the two sides are lazy. Far from it. They've trained, they've sparred, they've folded hundreds of sashes. But the longer this campaign stretches, the clearer it becomes. Nobody's in a rush for resolution. The goal isn't victory. It's something far subtler. Stability. Face. Honor preserved. And if that means drawing out the engagement into the next moon cycle, well, all the better for the region's ceremonial parasol makers, who are enjoying a real boom in commissions. You sit with a group of mid-ranking officers near a fire where sweet potatoes roast slowly under damp palm husks. One of them is carving a new scabbard knot out of necessity, but because the last one didn't feel expressive enough. Another is writing haiku in chalk on a dried banana leaf. You ask them why the campaign has stalled. One shrugs. We showed strength. Another. They responded with dignity. A third, older man, chews slowly and says, no one wants to humiliate a cousin. And there it is. This war, like many in 18th century Siam, isn't between distant strangers. It's between kingdoms that share history, bloodlines, languages. They eat the same food. They honor the same spirits. They sometimes even share the same weavers. To truly win would mean someone has to lose. And no one wants to embarrass anyone's grandmother. You think back to the garlanding of the fallen, to the birthday truce, to the duel where a lost blade was returned like a borrowed book. These weren't anomalies. They were the norm. Historians still argue whether these protracted, gentle wars were clever forms of political theater or deeply rooted expressions of Buddhist restraint. Or maybe both. Maybe a people who build beauty into their battles are simply unwilling to let conquest outweigh character. You wander later to the edge of camp, where a low river winds its way through reeds and lazy frogs. There, you find a soldier from the other side sketching in the mud with a stick. You nod to him. He nods back. You both sit. He's drawn a map off the very field where the next engagement might happen, complete with tiny icons for T-tents and tree stumps. You pull out a sliver of charcoal and draw a bridge. He smiles and adds a bird. No one speaks. Back in camp, you find your commander reciting inventory to a scribe. Not weapons, not armor, lantern oil, umbrellas, ceremonial sashes. The things that matter when time stretches and fighting isn't the point. You ask him, "Do you think we'll actually battle?" He considers this. "We'll display." You wait. "We'll maneuver." Pause. "But I think no one here truly wants to draw blood. We want to be seen. We want to be remembered." That's different. That night, as the cicadas begin their evening chorus and the soup pot gurgles contentedly over a quiet fire, you settle into your mat with a strange calm. No battles were fought today. No flags were toppled. No declarations were made. And yet, something has been said, something clear and quiet and undeniable. That war, in this part of the world, can be a language. And not every sentence ends with a sword. You wake before the sun does. The air is still, thick with dew and anticipation, but not of danger. No one is shouting. No gongs, no drums. Just the quiet shuffle of sandals across the earth and the occasional creak of woven bamboo as tents are rolled up and folded down. Today is the last day of the campaign. Not because of a final victory, not because of surrender, and certainly not due to a grand act of warfare. It's just time. The calendar says so. The astrologers have agreed. And both sides are tired of repitching their tents in soil that keeps trying to grow mangoes beneath them. The orders are simple. Prepare the closing ceremony. You're tasked with folding flags. Not a symbolic gesture. A literal one. Every unit's banner must be cleaned, dried, smoothed, and folded in a specific pattern. Lengthwise, then widthwise, then diagonally, so that the symbol remains visible on the outside. It's less of a military exercise and more like wrapping sacred cloth. You kneel in the shade, working beside two young aides from another company. One hums while folding. The other arranges the wooden flagpoles by height tallest to shortest like a bouquet of noble intentions. Across the field, troops from both camps are assembling. There are no weapons drawn. No commands barked. Just soldiers adjusting their uniforms, brushing dust from one another's shoulders, passing water flasks and palm fan greetings. At the center of the gathering space stands a tall bamboo pole with no flag at all, just a loop of white cloth. A symbol of mutual completion. You're led forward with your unit and take your place in the growing circle. Everyone forms up, not by rank, but by role. Archers beside scribes, scouts beside cooks, elephant handlers near the monks. The officiating priest raises a hand. Not to speak, but to signal silence. And in that moment, even the wind seems to bow. Then, the procession begins. Officers from both sides walk to the center, carrying their unit banners. Each bows low, then lifts the flag to the pole. Not to raise either is no winner to declare. Instead, they wrap the flags together. Red over blue, green over gold. The fabrics twist and settle, tied with white silk cord. It is finished. Next, the offering table. Small bundles are placed carefully. Candied rice, a scroll of poetry, folded lotus leaves, a few sticks of sandalwood incense. One officer adds a pair of worn sandals. Another lays down a dulled sword blunt, chipped, still wrapped in cloth. The priest lights the incense. And then, with practiced calm, everyone bows. Once, twice, and a third time for the ancestors. Not one word is shouted. No medals handed out. No lines redrawn. Just this. Recognition. Dignity. A formal farewell. You notice someone passing through the crowd with a pouch of betel nut and slices of lime. A soldier from the other side offers you one. You accept. Chew slowly. The taste is sharp and earthy, a bit like this whole experience, unexpected, slightly disorienting, but somehow grounding. There's a moment of quiet music, drums and flutes, played softly from the shade of a flowering tree. A final hymn of sorts. You don't understand all the words, but the refrain keeps repeating. What is remembered is not who struck first, but who bowed last. You breathe that in. Let it settle in your chest. As the crowd begins to disperse, the The soldiers fold into smaller groups, nodding farewells, shaking hands, some even embracing arms over shoulders, palms to chests. Not victory, not defeat. Closure. You return to your tent, now half-packed, and roll your fa cow ma carefully, tucking it into your satchel. You smooth it once more. It smells of rice smoke, jasmine, and your own sweat. You've worn it through drills, tea ceremonies, duels, and one nearly tragic parasol incident. You place it atop your gear with quiet pride. The sun has risen high now, warming the emptying field. Birds return to the trees. Somewhere, a young monk is gathering leftover garlands and humming a tune about fish and clouds. You hoist your bag, take one last look at the now empty ceremonial pole, and turn toward the road home. Not because you won, not because you lost, but because you showed up, stood with dignity, bowed when it mattered, and left the battlefield as whole as you arrived. The journey home is gentle. Your feet move slowly, not from exhaustion, but because there's no rush. The path is shaded in places, and the sound of cicadas humming blends easily with the rustle of cloth in your pack. You've folded your gear just so carefully, methodically like the scribes taught you, and your shoulders feel light for once. The wind brushes gently through the palms overhead, and you catch the scent of something faintly sweet, banana leaves maybe, or the memory of tea shared between former opponents. You pass a tree with a ribbon tied around its base. Someone left a garland there, now just petals and thread. You pause, bow gently, then continue. The road curves softly away from the campgrounds. You don't look back. You don't need to. Because you carry the shape of the field in your steps, the tone of the gongs in your ears, the arc of each respectful bow and the way your shoulders rise and fall with every breath. No drumbeats chase you. No banners follow. Only the soft rhythm of memory. You reach a clearing just as the sky begins to pale toward dusk. You stop, close your eyes, let the silence settle, and in that quiet, you feel its stillness, like a folded flag resting in your satchel, like a garland placed with care, like a goodbye that does not ache. Sleep comes easily now, like mist rising from morning earth, gentle, complete.